Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar, COVID-19 Justice Adapted, Canadian Law Librarians. A few housekeeping notes. We have received a tremendous response to this webinar, and we are hosting a large audience. If you experience technical difficulties, the first thing we suggest is to simply exit the meeting and re-enter it using the link provided. Rest assured that LexisNexis will distribute a recording of the presentation in a timely manner. We have received many questions in advance of the webinar, and we will do our best to answer them. If you would like to submit a question today, please use the Q&A pod.
Bonjour et merci à tous de vous joindre à notre webinaire COVID-19, la justice s'adapte des bibliothèques de droit du Canada. Voici quelques notes d'aspect administratif. Nous avons reçu un énorme écho à ce webinaire et nous accueillons un très large public. Si vous rencontrez des difficultés techniques, la première chose que nous vous suggérons est de simplement quitter la réunion et d'y revenir en utilisant le lien fourni. Soyez assurés que LexisNexis distribuera un enregistrement de la présentation dans les prochains jours, ainsi que des ressources supplémentaires pouvant vous être utiles. Nous avons également reçu de nombreuses questions et nous ferons de notre mieux pour répondre à beaucoup d'entre elles. Si vous souhaitez soumettre une question aujourd'hui, veuillez le faire en utilisant la section « Questions ». Nous tenterons d'y répondre.
As COVID-19 events continue to unfold, the LexisNexis Canada team is working to support the legal community by providing free legal news, analysis, and other key resources. The Lexis Practice Advisor Coronavirus landing page provides a document kit that can be downloaded for free, and customers can access this information from within the product through the COVID-19 pod.
Alors que les événements de la COVID-19 continuent de se dérouler, l'équipe de LexisNexis s'efforce de soutenir la communauté juridique en fournissant gratuitement des nouvelles, des analyses et des ressources. La page Coronavirus de Lexis Practice Advisor propose un ensemble de documents qui peuvent être téléchargés.
On the screen, you will see information about our next 3 sessions. Please feel free to register.
Vous apercevez maintenant à l'écran les informations sur nos 3 prochaines sessions. N'hésitez pas à vous inscrire.
Today's webinar will now begin. I'd like to introduce the moderator, Julie Chapman. Julie is the General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer at LexisNexis Canada.
La présentation d'aujourd'hui va bientôt débuter. Laissez-moi vous présenter notre modératrice, Julie Chapman, General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer chez LexisNexis. Veuillez également noter que cette présentation est diffusée en anglais uniquement. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks very much. And thank you for that introduction, and welcome to everyone joining us. As your moderator today, I have the privilege of introducing our 4 distinguished panelists. In no particular order, we will have Alicia Liu, who is the Director of the Library Branch at the Supreme Court of Canada. After spending a year in China early in her career, Alicia returned to Canada and decided to pursue a career in special libraries. Prior to joining the SEC, she was with Statistics Canada in Ottawa. And next we have Dr. Christine Brown, who is the Head of Faculty Engagement for Humanities, Social Sciences, and Law at the University of Alberta. Dr. Brown has spent most of her career working in academic libraries. Prior to joining the U of A, she worked as a public library director with the Leduc Public Library, as well as an assistant professor of library and information studies at the University of Alabama. Jennifer Mcnair is Senior Director, Knowledge Services with Fasken Martineau de Moulin, LLP. Jennifer has worked in a large law firm environment for the past 16 years. In her current role, she manages a library and a team of 6 people that provide legal and legislative research, competitive intelligence, and knowledge management support to the entire firm. And last but not least, we have Alex Mcnair. He is the Manager of Information Services with the Courthouse Libraries of BC. Alex is an information professional with over 15 years of legal research and information systems experience. His team develops and maintains legal information collections to ensure everyone in BC has the information they need and the ability to use it. Again, thanks to all 4 of you for agreeing to join us today and share your insights. We all look forward to them. So let's just jump right in now with questions, if everyone's ready to go. I'll wait for you to turn on your turn on your mics and turn on your videos. An added step in these times. So we'll start with the first question, talking about general experience. Alicia, we'll start with you. So for the Supreme Court of Canada, what has been your general experience since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic situation?
Okay, it has been surprisingly a very positive experience. As you all know, we have a fairly large print collection, and that sudden switch to work from home turned out to be a real life experiment for our staff and our users. Our organization already uses SharePoint to manage case files and OpenText content server for administrative and working documents. And then our library itself, we recently moved to a new library portal, which integrated both the LMS, the LibGuides, and EBSCO Discovery Services, so we could search both print and electronic resources at the same time. And so it has been an incredible forced journey to find out how we could continue to provide most of our services from our homes. But I have to give credit to my team for their readiness and willingness to adapt. One word that came up during one of our regular meetings, I asked everyone to describe how you would describe the library, and tenacious was one word that came up. And because being a service-oriented group, everyone was working really hard to find those hard-to-find items. And I could see from the team exchanges how resourceful they were and how determined they were to find that item. That phrase, leaving no stone unturned, came up quite often. And it was like we could reach out to our networks like CallL and the international community to meet those goals. So during the first 2.5 weeks, we really had no access at all to our print collection until we were given permission to have one of our staff members come in to clear our mail because it was piling up so much. It happened to be also our year end, so it was very important that we paid all the bills to all our publishers. So yeah, that really we were able to manage the volume of materials that were coming up. And so that's when we decided to also quarantine books, all the book returns, because as you know, the court had continued releasing judgments. So they were all, the books were still being consulted in the building. So.
Thank you, Alicia. And Jennifer, do you have a different experience from the private practice area?
Actually, it was actually really simplistic to get home. We had invested a lot in a virtual desktop infrastructure before. So over the past year, we had been working with virtual solutions, and a lot of my team had already been practicing because we had been working from home 1 or 2 days a week. My entire team was rotating around a schedule, so they were quite used to working from home. And we had tested pretty much all of our resources to make sure that they would work away from the office, that there was no reduction in functionality. So it was a fairly seamless procedure. I think the main thing from working from home was just the long days that we had in the first few weeks. There was additional training that had to happen with users, and finding that there were extra long days. We were getting more requests away from the office with everybody working from home than we ever had while we were all there.
Interesting. And I'm just moving along the squares here. Christine?
Hi there. Yeah, similar to Jennifer, we had quite a smooth transition. We had a lot of things in place in the academic library environment, such as a chat service that ran with staff at the same time we were during our opening hours. And we had already integrated library apps and into the e-class environment, where students suddenly, professors were having to create e-class situations for students for their classes for the last part of the term. So we were already there. So that was a real great help for students. one of the great things that helped us was how vendors and others gave us access on an emergency basis to some of the materials that we would have in print only, and that weren't accessible. So that was really something that helped us along the way, and we're really appreciative of that. So.
Great, thank you. And Alex, what's been your experience so far?
Yeah, quite a similar one too. I mean, the closure of our physical spaces happened pretty quickly, but we were in a good position for all of our staff in our 29 locations to transition to working from home. We use Citrix, which enables our staff to log in remotely to their desktops. So basically, they had access from home to everything that they would have had in the workplace, including, our shared file directory and our digital resources. Yeah, there were of course some jobs at first. We were uncertain about how the transition to working from home would be, particularly those roles that involved, physical handling of print materials, such as our library tech. But I think what was interesting was that we quickly found out that a good portion of those jobs could be done remotely as well. And I also would like to say that a big impact was that our CEO and our senior leadership team did a fantastic job of assuring staff that their safety and the safety of our clients was the first concern, and that nobody's employment would be affected, by this. So that was a really great thing to hear from them, very supportive. And yeah, as I say, working from home for some of those roles, we found that their time was actually very much needed in other roles as we prepared for our safety and our environment, such as the ordering of supplies, etc.
Right. Well, I'll actually stick with you, Alex, on the next question too. And Jennifer mentioned this briefly, talking about an increase in work for her, especially in the first few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Found that there has been an increase in, I'll say, I mean, in general, just in the work that your group has been doing, and if so, what types of requests are you receiving?
Right. So yes, we are continuing to receive a healthy number of requests for assistance. There definitely has been a change due to the fact that we serve a lot of people in person, particularly members of the public. Statistically, there has been a decrease overall in requests, particularly obviously among the in-person visits. But yeah, however, requests through our email and our website's Ask a Librarian form have been quite consistent in terms of numbers. And while the nature of the legal research requests haven't differed greatly from before, we are definitely seeing some large increases into inquiries into our other services that we offer, such as our remote access to databases. We offer for Law Society members the ability to sign up and get remote access to 4 particular databases. And we've seen a huge increase in requests and for information about our upcoming training CPD offerings. And yeah, I would say the greatest change for us has been the ratio of legal professionals contacting us versus members of the public. For a long time, we've had roughly about a 50-50 split between requests for support by members of the public and law firms. And we are seeing quite a change now, with about 80% lawyers requesting assistance compared to 20% of the public.
Right.
And
very interesting.
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Christine, would you like to weigh in on this one?
Sure. Yeah, we had a similar experience. Our chat service, of course, went up considerably because this was really the only way students and faculty could connect with us, as well as members of the public. So that we saw an increase there, but we are seeing an increase in the number of faculty members trying to connect with librarians to help work on preparing for courses for the fall, dealing with getting access to materials they needed for exams during the exam period. And so we saw increases there. But I would say the more consults and work with faculty now, because there's just a little bit more work involved in coordinating, preparing for the fall term, because the U of A, like many universities, we are going to be going to all online teaching in the fall. So there's still some significant issues that we're going to have to deal with there, and working with faculty is what we're spending a lot of time right now doing, and preparing materials and for that. Yeah.
I'm sure everyone is in the same boat, right? Where everyone's trying to figure this out and go and looking to the future. Jennifer, did you want to expand a little bit on the, you were busy the first few weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first few weeks into the months, there were obviously all the emergency orders that came out, emergency measure orders. We're coming out fast and furious and trying to keep ahead of that was a real job. But also in terms of, we do a lot of business research and competitive intelligence research, so trying to read and react to the new normal in terms of where the work is coming in from, and helping the lawyers and business development team with research to explore that area. So those were two big areas, and just training, right? We were trying to reinforce training that we'd already done and reinforce how to use the tools that we already have. So, you know, how to use ebooks. We've got ebooks on multiple platforms. Here's how you find them. Here's how you use them.
So there's been an uptick in terms of training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you, Alicia?
Yeah, steady number of requests, and also increasing number for searches for electronic versions of materials. So I'm taking this opportunity to mention to all publishers that we've come across instances where ebooks, where there's licenses. When you purchase an ebook, it's only restricted to single-use licenses, and that's something that it doesn't work out for libraries. So we need to work together on something like this, on improving this.
Yeah, I agree on that one. We're really, especially as we move to the fall, it's the textbooks that we're going to need to be able to loan in a way that is meaningful for students, because not all students can afford to buy the textbooks, and normally the library would loan print copies of them, or have them on a small number of them for short-term loan, and this is a situation that we need to deal with e-copies now.
Right. And at this point, is there any ability for the actual hard copies to be lent out, or is that still off the table?
We're working on implementing a a loan pickup system, but only for long-term loans, not for the short-term 2-hour loans that we used to be able to give students, because there are some items that are quite costly and aren't, are used for one course for one term at a time. So we don't need to have many copies. A few used in a 2-hour loan kind of situation is fit our needs, and so we're going to be looking to figuring out how we can get access to materials without maybe having to purchase as many copies, but maybe a loanable version for a term that we could loan out to a certain number of students at a time. Figuring that out is really going to be key for this fall term.
Okay.
And potentially the winter term. We're not certain. I'm like,
we don't know, right?
We don't know. So that's yeah. One term at a time is what we're doing right now.
I'm going to move to the next question that we were going to look at today, and I'll start with you, Jennifer. I know, I think you mentioned that you were part of the innovation committee at your firm. We were wondering, you know, if you developed or implemented any new special, you know, initiatives within the firm in order to assist your clients and lawyers, students, whoever you have working at the firm.
Well, even within my own department in knowledge services, we had produced an emergency measures hub. So we had alerting to lawyers across the firm in terms of emergency measures by jurisdiction. So we were monitoring for federal and provincial, and lawyers could sign up and have immediate alerts as soon as something came up that was relevant to them. We also looked at our intranet. We redid the whole homepage to make things a little bit more easily found, the new stuff that we were trying to get people to pay attention to. So everything from the open houses that we had where the managing partner might be speaking to an office, to FAQs and new tools that we might be introducing during work from home. So on the innovation side, I've been involved with them with creating their knowledge management system. And it's kind of a golden age of knowledge management right now, because people really are desperate to know how to do things quickly and efficiently and in a new way that is more technologically savvy. So a lot of the tools that we've been pushing through innovation are now getting a lot of attention. And I'm working with the KM lawyers to also include a lot of new precedents into our precedent system to put them front and center so people can find what they need quickly. So a lot with the innovation team that we've been working on already, and a lot of things that we have coming up in the coming months. But it has been challenging, right? Like a lot of lawyers are having to learn a lot of new tools very quickly. And kudos to them. They've been taking training like crazy and picking these things up quickly and working competently very quickly.
I guess that's the good thing, is that you can't necessarily put the training off any longer.
No.
Alicia?
So besides
special initiatives, yeah.
Yes, so besides acquiring a lot of additional electronic collections, we modify our new titles list to just highlight all the electronic titles that we're acquiring for our users. We also newly bought lip answers, so a lot of the team members were working on migrating and updating our FAQs. But what I'm very amazed is how we are in the midst of replacing our self-circulation kiosk from home. It shows the adaptability of our systems librarian. She's managed to you know, coordinate everything and set up and implement, work with the vendors and our IT section. But she will be going for one day this week into the office in order to physically replace the actual kiosk. So the timing has been good for this because it includes a mobile checkout app. So our users will be able to, from now on, borrow books without, by reducing, you know, the actual physical touching of a
So they can just do that on their phones?
Yep.
Or,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Turned out timely.
Yeah. What about you, Alex?
Right. Well, as mentioned, we've really increased the number of webinars and CPD opportunities that we've been offering. Our training team has done an outstanding job of really connecting with professionals in the area to expand our weekly offerings of CPD. I would say one policy change that was quite different is we started offering free document delivery for this period. We really just want to ensure that we're able to get our content out to the people that need it. So, you know, for example, we've had some libraries that have contacted us to say that they've had to reduce their expenses as well. And so I think by offering free document delivery can really assist with that. And yeah, and I think one initiative that really stands out is that CLBC does create wiki books. So on the wiki platform, they're like plain language information, legal publications, and some of the librarians put together a brand new COVID-19 resources for British Columbia wiki book, which basically is a curated collection of information specifically on COVID and the ways that COVID-19 public health directives are affecting people.
And then they can just get it all in one place.
Exactly, exactly.
Perfect. And Christine, what are you doing at the university?
I'll talk about two sort of key things. We're looking at, again, the mobile apps for self-circulation once we actually open again, because that will be very useful. But one thing that a group in the libraries have been working on is open educational resources, and working with faculty to locate as many of those as possible, especially for our large enrollment classes. Now, this is across the campus, but includes the law faculty as well. So we're working with faculty to see if they have an interest in that, finding some of those. They're not all available. As law there's not as much available there, but we're working with them and saying if they want to work and create an open educational resource, we have the software and some staff to help with that. The other initiative that we have worked with at the library is a partnership with, we're members of the Hathi Trust. And so we've been able to, of course, anybody can access their emergency collection right now, but we've been able to negotiate with them getting the records for that collection temporarily loaded into our catalog. So that's about 1.8 million scanned books, many of them out of print right now. And so that represents about 30% of our print holdings. So faculty and students have temporary access. This is like a temporary measure to these materials in an online version. So those two things, I think, have been key tools for us to focus on in the year. But again, looking at revamping things like our website and highlighting the changes in services and what's important for COVID-19, similar to what Jennifer mentioned, we've done that too. And it's really helping us rethink that though too, how our website is organized and how effective it can be for you know, emergency situations like this and going forward as well.
All right. Well, you guys have done these things in a very short period of time, so.
It's amazing what people have been able to do in such a short, I mean, getting all those records loaded into our catalog, that was done in a few weeks. Like it's quite amazing what our staff have been able to do, and it's very helpful.
It's nice to see everyone pull together. I wanted to, I know we've talked a lot about tools and technology, so I think at this point it might be a good idea to talk about kind of looking towards the future as opposed to what we've done so far, and thinking about, you know, the impact of the pandemic on the library environment in general. So I was going to start with Alicia on this question. Do you envision a broad strategic or policy changes coming out of this when you're looking forward in terms of how your library will operate?
So everything is still under development, but working from home will probably be more widely accepted, right? But we do have to balance that with, like, the Globe and Mail recently published that article, I think this past weekend, about office environment and how job satisfaction levels, that's very important. So we have to find that balance in the workplace. In terms of our collection development policy, we're still analyzing it, but for sure there's a stronger direction towards digital. But our library is often, what I find is that our library is often cited as a comprehensive national legal collection. So, and there's always, I think I've even came across somebody did a study that they were saying how different types of libraries always looked at our collection when they're making policy decisions in whether to discard materials or not. So it's quite a challenge to maintain this heritage collection as well as offering the digital offerings for our.
Right, and you are aware that your decisions may impact other people's.
Oh, yes.
Jennifer, as far as the law firm goes, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, since I arrived there at my current firm about 6 years ago, my mandate has been to be electronic only. And, you know, we were still a ways away from that when we left for work from home. But I had already sort of planned in my mind this summer anyways to take another go at it. And I think that, you know, with the way that things have turned out at this time in this period, most people are comfortable working from home. They're comfortable using the electronic and they're able to let a lot of the print go. We haven't had a lot of requests for things that are sitting on the shelf. So I feel like, you know, the law firms themselves will start thinking about saving on floor space. It's very expensive to keep those books in a corporate office downtown. If we can help our firms to save any money by reducing on floor space, then that's what we will do to help strategically.
Okay, and Christine?
Oh, yeah, we are going to be making some decisions about looking at more focus on working from home and having more meetings remotely. I know I've been in several faculty-wide meetings where the attendance on a virtual meeting has been so much more than they would have been in the in-person meetings. So we know that some of these ways of meeting I think are going to be used even when we are in person working on the campus. We're definitely going to be continuing with our we've been an e-preferred, had an e-preferred collection management policy for a long time now, and that's actually helped us in this environment. But we'll be keeping focus on that and looking at where we can enhance that in ways. And again, working with faculty to encourage some open educational resources, finding ways to make textbooks and things like that more accessible for students. And you know.
So it looks like, you know, everyone is, I mean, Alex, I know, yeah, I want to hear from you as well, but it sounds like everyone has started to look a little more on the long term.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. We are also doing a service review in order to continue working from home and making it easier for staff to do their work and also to connect with our clients. In terms of looking towards the future, I think one of our interesting big changes coming up is to our Law Matters program. So for those that aren't familiar with that, that's a program where we are supporting public librarians in building legal collections. You know, we recognize that we have 29 locations throughout the province, but public libraries are perfect for serving those other communities. And just as we were kind of we had our plan in place about helping these public libraries purchase print materials to help their patrons. All of a sudden, you know, they shut down too. And their need to order print, you know, was suspended as well. So we are definitely shifting gears a little bit to move more into supporting how they can move through these times as well, and how they can offer more remote assistance and things like that for legal related questions.
Okay, and you know, another part of this, and I'll start with you, Jennifer, is I don't know if anyone has sort of looked at this point and getting feedback from their internal clients on what they think going forward. And do you expect that they will have different expectations than you've been used to, you know, in the past?
Well, certainly. I mean, you know, we do a lot of things just in time. So, you know, my whole strategy around not having physical books on the shelf for just in case, we do a lot of things just in time, and we sort of try to predict the future, right? So a lot of the requests that we get now are from lawyers trying to figure out where the work is going to be going, because it's very uncertain times right now. And I feel like a lot of the requests that librarians will start to see is more on the business side as well as the legal and research side. And I'd already mentioned that the knowledge management piece is really important at this point in time too, that we're sort of taking the lead in our firms and our organizations to capture that knowledge and make it accessible to people. So I would feel that a lot of those areas are important.
So I assume that that type of, in terms of knowledge management, are you talking about precedents? And
precedents to some extent, but also I think of knowledge management really about how to do things efficiently. It's like a procedure, a policy, a procedure, a tool that goes with it, and then an end result, right? So it's a memory, and it's also the technology that's been passed down. So you don't have to recreate the wheel every time you want to do something. People think of precedents mostly, but it's so much more than that. It's current awareness, it's a lot of different things.
And that requires, I assume, quite a bit of, cooperation and collaboration.
Yes, of course.
To pull all that knowledge together and have
yes.
it possible in one place. So that'll be interesting.
Yes.
Okay, what about you, Christine?
Oh, hi. Sorry, I just muted my mic because my husband seems to have found this time to mow outside the house.
Okay, I'm right across the street from a school, and right now I see the massive lawnmower mowing that lawn. So, of course.
Sorry about that if you're hearing the mowing sound. So now, remind me, where were we? What was I answering?
Oh, we're just talking about whether or not we thought your clients would have different expectations going forward of your department. Jennifer was talking about knowledge management.
I think our students are still going to require want access to a physical space to study and work, because our services are also part of the facility that we offer as well. But that's just not going to be possible until the pandemic is pretty much over. So their expectations will be still around having that, but I see that they will be enjoying the access they have to librarians virtually. So I think having a lot of our consult work going on virtually will be something students will really appreciate and want to have more of in the future. And so that might change the way we work with students, more virtually and maybe less in person. Mostly because students will be, some may be coming from a distance, right? So students who are studying from a distance won't be able to come into the campus as often as they'd like. And so having that ability to work with staff virtually is going to be really important. So that expectation, I think, will increase for sure.
Okay.
And again, around training and development of staff, having opportunities that are virtual, again, are going to be certainly increasing as well.
And Alicia?
We do have a KM librarian too, and we do have an internal application that the library coordinates and involves a lot of the internal key people in order for them to be able to come up with consistent decisions and all that. But what the pandemic has done is accelerate our transition from print to digital. Mm-hmm. What we found is, depending on the week, we're seeing that we are able to fulfill about 60 to 70% of our requests by finding electronic resources, but the rest are still available in print. But and it's that balance, right? We have clients that are very diverse and the requirements are sometimes very specific. So users are for sure, they're comfortable using digital, and the law clerks, that's their preference. But we also have another group that really needs what I call them verifiable documentation. So they need to have, and print is the most reliable for that, and in terms of access point too. So when we're citing to any electronic resources, it has to, it comes up with issues like link rot and limited access. So depending on the type of information that is being cited, we're going to be taking like authoritative resources that are more widely available. They will take more precedence than a paid subscription, for example. So we'll probably need to work with legal publishers about finding perpetual access to some of the content if we were to go replace digital.
Okay, and Alex, I was going to combine this as well with something, you know, I'm aware with the issues with having so many locations, and we're talking about expectations, and I'll also, I think, just add to the question about how you see, you know, the reopening of those physical locations, given our social distancing requirements.
Right, well, it certainly will be challenging, but I think we have been working well on revising what we've been calling our safe return to work planning. And so we've made a lot of progress in addressing those challenges. As you mentioned, we have 29 locations, you know, situated in courthouses around the province. And it became clear that, you know, flexibility was really the needed thing when it comes to preparing our spaces for reopening. Yeah, we really realized that there's no one size that fits all when it comes to preparing for physical distancing here. You know, the physical size differences of our library branches has been certainly one of the most challenging areas to overcome. We have some large branches, such as like our Vancouver and Victoria locations, but we have some very, very small ones in other communities. And these small locations are, well, essentially like a room that provides public access computers to provide our full suite of electronic resources, but there's very little room for print. But I guess the key problem there is that some of them physical distancing simply won't actually be possible in these very small locations, and or, you know, we'll have to shut down one of our public access computers because we can't have people sitting beside each other. So we're most likely going to have to look into a phased approach of our reopenings, where the locations that could handle physical distancing will gradually open up, and then we'll have to wait for full opening for some of these other small locations. I'd just like to point out as well that one of our interesting challenges has been that while the buildings have been physically closed, members of the Law Society have always and continue to have 24-hour access to the locations. So while we can put, you know, measures in place for when staff are there to ensure there's cleaning, etc., we're not exactly in control of what happens after those working hours, as people, lawyers are free to come in.
True.
So, yeah.
Jennifer, did you want to talk about return to work, social distancing?
Yeah, I mean, we can put a lot of protocols in place in terms of safety of materials and stuff, safe handling. But I think the biggest issue that I'm concerned about is that our collection really is in a wide open space. It's on a practice floor, the litigation floor, where the lawyers are used to coming and taking materials off the shelf themselves and leaving with them. So, you know, just even getting back into the office, we're going to have to track down a lot of materials that would have left the library while we were away. And how do you stop people when you don't have staffing there from picking things up is a big deal. In terms of the social distancing, I find that our floor plan is actually pretty good. Everybody has their own physical offices that they can close doors on and stay relatively safe. But I can't see putting my entire staff back on that floor anytime soon. I could see putting maybe one person per day for a limited number of hours in that, maybe several months from now, but that's not something that we're thinking about right away.
Yeah, I think everyone's thinking along the same lines right now, is that even when you do go back, it will certainly be a phased return to, I guess I'll say, normal. Alicia?
Yeah, it's the health and safety of everyone is the paramount. So it will definitely be a gradual return. We're just really at the beginning of that conversation, because the past few weeks, the court has been really planning for their upcoming Zoom hearings next week. So.
And Christine, I'll look to you, and I think after that,
well,
we'll turn to some panel questions.
Yeah, we're looking at phased approach to reopening, and when we get the guidance and the word from the university that we could open, and we have further complications because we're part of a consortium of libraries, and so working out the details of sharing collections in this environment is quite complex, and is going to be probably happen later in any reopening. So we're literally at starting this, and so we have a committee of library managers who are talking and exploring what exactly we should be doing. So unknown exactly what we're going to be doing, but certainly, like everybody else, health and safety of the staff is paramount, and the students as well. We're working in a big environment where you can't control the large numbers of students and faculty and staff who work in a university. And so having fewer people working on the campus as possible is, I think, the main goal, and the libraries have to fit into that in some way.
Okay, well, I have a couple more questions, but I know we only have 14 minutes left, and we do have some questions from our participants as well. So if we could maybe look to the first one that I have here, which I actually love this kind of question. So the question that we received actually prior to this beginning was, what is or was your biggest challenge that you faced in this whole COVID-19 situation? Would anyone like to go first? All right, Jennifer.
My biggest challenge is not seeing my team in person. I really, really miss seeing them in person. It was difficult the first few weeks, and I still, you know, you can't get used to it 100%. So, you know, right from the get-go, I started a WhatsApp group to try and keep that connection with them and keep things fun outside of work. You know, we post pictures and stories about things that make us happy. I sent cupcakes to one of my team last week who had a special birthday, and everybody got cupcakes. So, you know, there's crazy shenanigans like that that I can try and do to keep everybody happy and engaged. But I find it really difficult not to see them in person. I look forward to seeing them in person in the future.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
You're nodding?
Yep.
And Christine and Alicia.
Yeah. It's really, that's been a big challenge. And just dealing with the expectations of some of our users who are eager and, you know, want especially to get access to our print collection, and we just can't provide it as fast as they would want it. So you know, that's been the big challenge, in saying no, we can't do that yet, and that's hard.
Yeah. Any other comments from Alex or Alicia?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think two things come to mind. One definitely related to the communication among staff. I think I definitely, it was quite a learning curve to realize I couldn't just wander along and chat to people and work out a few things on the fly. And so it seemed like for those first couple of weeks, everything became a formal meeting through Zoom to discuss things. And then, of course, you know, the fatigue kicked in with that. And it was very important for us to begin to learn what preferred means of communications were. So rather than making everything a Zoom meeting, a quick phone call or some other preferred means, or the frequency with which people wanted to check in, I think we experienced that some people really wanted to connect more often, and other people were saying, you know, no, once a week is good. I have enough other meetings and that sort of thing. Right. But I would say also the closing of our facilities has greatly impacted the members of the public. And that is definitely one of our greatest challenges. I mean, we're situated in courthouses, so, you know, a lot of members of the public don't really know we exist until they need us. They come into it, and so with that being cut off, you know, their ability to what was once a great facility to come in and work on forms and things like that has been cut off for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Alicia.
So I guess in terms of work, it was that association of the library as a physical place, especially for our technical support team, that required some thinking outside of the box. So, but luckily, like we systematically decided to think about the individual, like each of the individuals, and to think of what type of projects they could be working at home. So that really, fortunately, we had enough projects that it was working. So, but that communication aspect, like Jennifer mentioned, unfortunately, our work laptops do not have a camera. So we're not able to see anybody. So I'm just using my personal one here. But so what we've done, resorted to, is we have weekly meetings, and it's all by phone. So you're just depending, it's not the same, you're just based on the voice of the person, how they're reacting and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but it helps to have like a topic so that everybody gets to discuss and talk about it. So it's been working out quite nicely though.
Yeah, I agree. I used to be one of those people that thought, oh, why do when we have to do a conference call, do people want to be on video? And now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
if we don't have the option of being in person, this is better.
Yeah.
So on the topic of technology issues, we actually have another question from the group, and I'll just read it. Have you encountered any situations where your clients have been unable to reach the services they need because of persistent internet issues? I'm thinking digital divide here, not just a bad day. Has anyone had issues like that where that's continuous frustration?
Usually in our environment, that it depends where the user is situated in the country, and it could just be they had to reboot their machine. The technology itself might be one problem, but everybody's sitting from home with differing amounts of bandwidth. So, you know, you might be competing with your neighbor who's streaming video games or something like that. So it really depends on the user. If they can't resolve it by going through their ISP or IT, then we will send things obviously directly to their emails.
Okay. Anyone else have any issues on that front? No?
No.
We actually have one employee who has no internet access. So, the workaround has been to download a lot of files for her to work on offline. So. And then she connects with us. Yeah. But there's work being done.
That is a difficult one.
Yeah.
Okay, another one that I was actually wanting to hear from Alicia on, because I know you did have to deal with this, is how is your organization managing students and articling this summer? And this was a question from our participants as well.
Oh, yes. Well, at one point we were wondering whether we were going to hire our library students, but then after, practicing more with WebEx, because that was the one we had, we decided that it was possible to onboard staff. So that's what we went ahead and we just schedule meetings with various members of the staff and share the screen and have employees follow up with that. So what we're planning on now is how to onboard incoming law clerks. So that will be the next one. But it's worked out well so far.
And Jennifer, have you
just
been
don't
doing
see
any
them?
over? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just don't see them. Just hear voices.
Yeah.
So there's been a number of different tools that myself and other colleagues at other firms have been trying out with students, and some of them they've been using for years. So like Socrative is a tool that Marnie, one of our librarians in Vancouver, has been using with her students for several years now, and colleagues in Toronto have been using it. And it's great for sort of asking quizzes at the end of a training session to make sure that something's stuck, and it's very easy. You can get most of it for free. You don't need to purchase the full product. Other tools, I mean, the breakout rooms in Zoom are really good. I've had great experiences with that in a number of meetings that I've done where you want to break out individuals into topics and take off, discuss it, come back to the main room and then regroup. Those have been great. In terms of internal collaboration or collaborating with people outside your firm, there's a tool that I've started using recently called Nero, M-I-R-O, and it's great because you're able to do things like mind maps, sticky notes. You know, if you want to get a lot of ideas out quickly with a group of people, everybody has their little name attached to the colors and the things that they're using on the screen. So I found tools like that are great in terms of having something fun to do, but also seeing if you can either do brainstorming or with the students figure out if the learning that you provided is starting to stick with them. And the thing I appreciate with Lexis, I'd seen an email a few weeks ago about having legal research certification. And I think that is a fantastic idea. I'm really glad that Lexis is leading the way on that piece, because that's another sort of layer for us to check back with our students if things have really stuck with them and if they've learned what we expected them to learn through the tools.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. Yeah, it's hard to make things interactive right now, isn't it? So, Christine or Alex?
We've been using a lot of, as Jennifer mentioned, some tools out of Zoom breakouts. The librarians have been working hard to figure out the best way to use Zoom and structuring their teaching and that sort of thing. So that's with the students is important. I know I've had one librarian mention how he had his monitor open, a iPad open, so he could see what the students were seeing when he was presenting, and another monitor for his phone was running the chat. So he was trying many different ways to ensure that what we're doing with the students is effective. And so the librarians work together to share what they have learned and their experience, and that's been really helpful too. Encouraging staff to take time to practice with each other has been quite beneficial, and sharing the mistakes and the things that work really well.
Okay. And worst case, you know, you record yourself and then you watch it, which is awful, but you might learn something. And Alex, what about you?
Well, we haven't really brought in any brand new technology. We've definitely been repurposing some of the ones that we've had. So in other words, you know, a select group might use a particular tool, but now we're expanding it and training other staff members. So a good one with that as part of our Office 365 was Microsoft Teams. We hadn't actually, you know, introduced that because we had other project management tools, but when we started working remotely, some select staff members started to use it to collaborate on their projects, and it worked well enough for them to actually then go out and train some of the other staff on it to get us to adopt it as a collaboration tool. I think one of the other interesting ones is we have a platform called Thought Exchange. And what that purpose is really, it's an online tool to pose a question and then just have people give their own responses to that important question, you know, anonymously, so they can actually just put whatever comes to mind. And then the final stage of that is for other people to go in and star those thoughts that people have added. And then through the software itself, it can pull to the top the really important ideas or the ones that there's a lot of agreement on. And while we've used that internally to pose a question about, say, how, you know, what do you think about this policy or something like that, some of our training, the people involved in training have actually been using it externally to invite participants in an upcoming webinar, for example, to contribute what they would like to see out of the webinar. And then people can go back in and say, oh yes, I'd like to see that too, and star these items. So that's been a really interesting one.
You said that was called Thought Exchange?
Thought Exchange, yes.
Oh, great.
It is not, there's a cost. So, and dependent on, once again, like for the size of organizations and things like that. So.
And one other tool I forgot to mention, we've had Yammer at our firm for years, but nobody's really taken it up at all. And we're sort of re-releasing it this summer. and using it for tips. So you can create different groups. So you can have a group for your library, you can have a group for different topics, and then have hashtag topics that people can follow. So, you know, I find that product can actually have finally some usefulness within an organization when everybody's dealing with things electronically and you want to keep up to date with little tips.
Okay, well, that's very helpful, everyone. We are at 3 o'clock, so I couldn't get all the participants' questions, I'm sorry, but I hope that was useful today. I want to thank all the participants for joining us online today. Please note that a link to the recording of this webinar will be available soon and will be provided to everyone who registered by email. A sincere thank you to all of our panelists today for their time and willingness to share experiences and their suggestions with us. And finally, on behalf of LexisNexis Canada, stay safe, stay healthy, and we hope to see all of you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.